Welcome to Basic Brewing Video. I'm James Spencer. Behind me is a hop yard. I'm actually in the Nelson region of New Zealand on a bus trip associated with the New Zealand National Homebrewers Conference. We're learning about the famous Nelson hops, where they come from, how they're grown, how they're processed. Come along and take a look. Nelson, New Zealand and the Nelson region are beautiful and home to lots of agriculture, including, of course, hops. The Nelson hop industry essentially started here at the Plant and Food Research Facility in Brooklyn near Motueka. It's here that new hop varieties are bred, tested, and propagated for production in Nelson hop farms. Nelson's latitude, weather, and soil are ideal for hop production. The Nelson varieties are based on California cluster from the Russian River Valley area. Cluster was susceptible to root rot, but through crossbreeding with European varieties in the 1960s, breeders came up with strains that were hardy, had good yields, and increased bitterness.
The main strategy, apart from disease resistance, was then moving in the second phase was what we call the seedless phase of our program. And to do that, you have to double the chromosome numbers of one of the parents. So to get seedless progeny, if you like, in your populations, you have to cross one with 4 sets of chromosomes with one with 2 sets, and you end up with progeny that's got 3 sets. So it's a bit like the banana, breeding banana. You don't have seeds of banana. So it's the same sort of analogy to that.
On our bus tour, we made a stop at Kentish farm, where they're harvesting the famous Nelson Sauvignon hops, so named because their character resembles the Sauvignon Blanc grape. At Kentish harvest is fairly low-tech. Workers cut down the bines and take them to a barn with processing equipment that separates the precious cones from the rest of the plant.
They're kind of simple. What we do is just strip everything off the vine, and then it's sorted by weight, basically. So it goes through a vacuum process. Everything light sticks to the screen, everything heavy drops, and then by a series of angled belts, and again, everything light goes over the top, everything heavy drops, and we end up with pretty clean hops at the end of it.
Once the cones are harvested, they are conveyed to the oast house, or kiln, where they're dried using heated air. Kentish kiln is coal-fired.
So that's the kiln with the day's crop, 1,000 bushels of Nelson Sauvignon sitting there waiting for the heat, and dry them out, and they'll come out looking like this. That's yesterday's kiln of what was called Super Alpha and is now called Dr. Rudy.
When the hops reach the desired moisture content, they're baled and sent here. New Zealand Hops is a grower cooperative owned by 17 grower-supplier shareholders. During harvest time, bales weighing around 125 kilos or 275 pounds are brought into this warehouse, which is kept at around -5 degrees Celsius or 23 degrees Fahrenheit to remove the field heat. During peak times, New Zealand Hops could receive 300 to 400 of these bales per day. The hops are weighed, identified by grower and variety, and analyzed for quality characteristics.
They would have taken a drill with a long stainless steel tube, taken the core sample out. Warren will do his thing. He's been doing it for 25 years and knows a lot more about it than I do. And he'll be smelling the hops for a bit of, and he can actually sort of tell a lot of the varieties, believe it or not, from what he's smelling.
Once they pass inspection, 90% of the hops are pelletized. They pass through this set of machines where they're fluffed, put through magnets to remove any metal, hammered into a powder, and put through dies to pelletize.
Essentially, this piece of equipment, which is yet to be cleaned for the season, will sit on top of these hop dies, and those rollers will press the pellets through. And there's nothing added to the hops, it's just its own essential oils forming a pellet. At the right temperature, basically. Too little and the pellet won't form, and you'll just get the meal go straight through. Too hot and it'll get darker. So.
After pelletizing, the hops are packaged into different sized bags that are flushed with nitrogen to help preserve them. They're stored in a refrigerated warehouse until they're sent to a brew kettle near you. Nelson exports around 3/4 of its production. This year's crop is expected to reach around 800,000 kilos, or 1.7 million pounds, potentially the second biggest harvest ever for the New Zealand hop industry. If you find it hard to get your hands on Nelson hops, relief may be on the way. Right now, 425 hectares, or around 1,050 acres, are planted, but growers are hoping to expand to 600 hectares, or nearly 1,500 acres, in the next few years. Thanks to the organizers of the New Zealand Homebrewers Conference for having us. We had a great time and learned a lot. Be sure to check out Basic Brewing Radio for more great content from Nelson. Come and visit us on the web. At basicbrewing.com, you can find archive lists of both our audio and video podcasts on home brewing. You can also find our DVDs, Extract Brewing and Partial Mashing, Stepping into All Grain, Low-Tech Lagering and Decoction Mashing, Introduction to Wine Kits, and our Basic Brewing Brewer's Logbook, where you can track and log up to 50 batches of beer. Drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. Write to James at basicbrewing.com, Steve at basicbrewing.com, or just use the contact form on basicbrewing.com.